We are on 24A4. My friends, just going to make a quick beracha of Hagefen of L'chaim for all of us. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri Hagefen.
Amen. It always happens to me. I'm always had a wine before we. Oh no! Is there any left in the bottle? Pass it to Ray.
Guys, we need to make sure before we finish this wine, we could order another one so we could do Atov Ametiv. Okay? All right. So Mazal Tov to everybody that finished. Mazal Tov to all the people that are going to be joining. I think we're at like 20 Gemaras by now on the group. Be'ezat Hashem. It's very, very special. And I want to just say extra special. Hazak Baruch. Did you attend one class live in Masechet Makot?
The first one.
The first one and last one. And he didn't miss. Wow. He finished the whole Masechet with us.
Bookends. That's amazing. That's up.
Isn't that amazing?
That's very hard.
Now, to finish it when you're live is one thing. But to finish it outside, unbelievable. So I'm very, very proud.
Nearly impossible.
I'm very proud of everybody. It's very, very special. And our group is only growing. Everybody should try and find someone to drag along on YouTube. Unbelievable. Okay, let's begin. Says the Gemara as follows. Now, just to recap where we were. The Gemara was saying that after there was a period of time where we had 613 mitzvot, the Nevi'im realized that, one second, the people are not going to be able to handle. So what did they need? They needed someone to come along and say to them, listen, I understand it's a lot, 613. Could you just do this? So we experienced a cut down in the initial stage of the Gemara before, and we went through what that meant. Now the Gemara goes one step further. Each time, it's an expression of the people shrinking in their level of observance. Okay? So every time they shrunk in their level of observance, again, they needed to address the problem and cut down once again on how much, what's it called? The people can handle. So let's begin. Says the Gemara, Ba Micha ve'emidan al shalosh. Micha came along and he established that we're going to really look at three things. Now, none of these people was cutting off any of the mitzvot. Not one person was cutting. The only thing that we were doing is giving people three categories. Listen, guys, could you focus on this? Could you focus on that? In each one of the categories would be effectively a lead on to everything. But they were trying to minimize it for the people so they wouldn't feel like it was too much. Ba Micha v'hemidan al shalosh. Micha came along and he stood up the whole of Torah on three things. What were they? Dichtiv. The pasuk says, Higid lecha in Micha, Higid lecha Adam, ma tov, u'ma Hashem doresh mincha. He said to you, okay, man, ma tov, what's good? U'ma Hashem doresh mincha. What does Hashem ask from you? Only ki im asot mishpat, to do justice, ve'avat chesed, and to love kindness, ve'atznei alechet im Hashem elokecha, and to be modest, to walk modestly with God. Those are the three things. Says the Gemara. What are each of these things? Asot mishpat, to do justice. Ze'adin, that refers to everything which is a law in the Torah, because that's what mishpat means. Avat chesed, to love chesed. Zegimilut chasadim, that relates to everything which is kind. So one might imagine, Ze'adin refers to all the mitzvot that are commandments in the Torah that you have to do, that God commands you to do. And then you have the things that are relevant to kindness between man and fellow man. So everything that's included in that is Gimilut Chasadim, is kindness. Ve'atznei alechet, and you should walk with modesty. Allah.
Thank you.
Next round you need to be in.
Stanley,
Okay.
Jack, Edward, and Ben.
Next round, and you, Dave.
You
All
got
right.
it.
You're the Ferrari head. We need you with us.
Okay.
All right, stay there.
What do
You
let's-
could
let's
you
take
could
for
sit
2
in it.
minutes.
You could sit in and join. Says the Micha that Snei Alechet, you need to walk modestly with God. What does it mean to walk modestly with God? The Gemara answers something surprising. When it comes to taking someone who's dead out to burial, or when it comes to bringing a kala into a marriage, okay, each one of these mitzvot a person should do quietly, in a modest way. Now, why of all things do we decide that that's what it's referring to? Maybe it just means to be modest. The answer is that by both of these is the concept of lechet, of going, of walking. So there's holachat, the walking with the met, with the dead person, levaya, and there's also the achnasat kala, walking with the kala to the chuppah. So since it says lechet, we described these things. Divarim shedarkan la'asotan b'tzina. Sorry, that's what it refers to. Es Gemara, says the Gemara, that's it. Divarim kal v'chomer. Isn't it a kal v'chomer? Remember what kal v'chomer means? Something light and something hard. So if it's true about light, how much more so is it true about hard? So if it's true, a funeral is the most public thing in the world, through the streets of the city. A chuppah has hundreds of people in attendance. If on that the Torah told you should do modestly, public things have to be done modestly. How much more so things that are not necessarily done publicly. What is included in things that are being done b'tzinah? What mitzvot do we do quietly? When you give someone charity, you don't make a big announcement, embarrass the guy, you do it quietly under the table, you try and help him. How much more so is there a mitzvah to do things that are supposed to be done b'tzinah? Says the Gemara as follows. Chazar Yeshayahu comes along after Micha ve'emidan al shtayim. He says, no. 3, too much. We need to go down to 2. What's the 2 of Yeshaya? Says the Gemara. Shneimar ko amar Hashem. Shimru mishpat v'asu tzedakah. Guard mishpat laws. V'asu tzedakah, and do acts of kindness. Now, what is the downgrade from Micha to Yeshayahu? One element is we went from 3 to 2. The second thing is, if you take a look carefully, the first time when it talks about mishpat, what does it say? It says a person should asot mishpat, do all the laws. And then what does it say? Ahavat chesed, to love kindness. Now we said, no, shimru mishpat. You don't have to do it, just guard it. Make sure, watch it. Don't try not to let it slip down further. But watching is less than doing. So he was taking it even a step down, even in the acts and the practices itself. V'asu tzedakah, and do tzedakah. In the first instance, what did it say? Love chesed. Loving chesed means you're going very far on the journey of chesed. Not only are you doing what you have to do, you're seeking out acts of kindness. You're trying to find more ways to get involved. I have people that when they see me, they run away. They know they owe money to the shul, or to this, or to that. They're nervous, I'm going to ask them for it. Meanwhile, I never ever ask anybody, that's not who I am. But they're nervous, they're a little bit maybe embarrassed. I have some people the opposite. I had a guy just ran up to me at a wedding. He says, Rabbi, you're not fueling the tank. You're not fueling the engine. I said, what do you mean? He says, I told you, I have a fund for tzedakah for some things, and you gave me a few cases. You didn't give me enough cases. You need to give me more. That's ahavat chesed. Asut tzedakah is tzedakah comes to you, and you do it. Micha to Yeshayahu was a downgrade from chesed to tzedakah, from loving chesed to doing tzedakah. The second opinion says that tzedakah is much more of a direct element. As an example, once a person has 200 zuz, is he already considered someone that could get tzedakah? No, he's out. What a beautiful idea. What do we learn? I just want to share with you a chidush that I noticed, I came up with a few years ago, b'si'ata dishmaya. The word tzedakah is tzadi, 90, daled, 4, kuf, 100, and heh, 5. The word tzedakah is 199. Because once he gets to 200, there's no more tzedakah. So tzedakah is up to 199. Hidden in the word itself. Because the tzedakah.
No, then 200 is what?
At 200 zuz, if the guy has 200 coins, he's no longer a poor man. So hidden in the word tzedakah is the parameters of tzedakah. Gorgeous. My friends, I remember, can I tell you when I thought of that chidush? I thought of that chidush at the shiva for Joe Major, Raquel Habert's dad. So my father randomly asked me to speak, and I started speaking, and the chidush came to me. That's when I thought of that chidush at the shiva for Joe Major. Ismail, listen to this now. Tzedakah, therefore, has limitations. Tzedakah also, how much is a person allowed to give tzedakah? We're supposed to give 10. What's the maximum you should give? Up to 20. So tzedakah again is limited. But when it comes to chesed, nobody ever told you can't do more than 20% of chesed. As much chesed as you want. So therefore he limited it from chesed to tzedakah. Ba'amos, said the Gemara. Amos now came along. Vehemidan alachat. He took us down from 3 to 2, now to 1 mitzvah. or at least one tip of the spear. Shneimar Ko Amar Hashem, it says, so does God say, Lebet Yisrael, Dirshuni v'chiyu, seek me out and you will live. So you see that God says to the Jewish people, look out for me, search for me, like Dirshu Hashem mimatz'o, v'chiyu, and you will live. Now, I just want to point out, when you read this last piece of the Gemara, you understand backwards looking what the Gemara meant by all the previous ones. Let's look. Gemara says, Matifla Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak asked on the Gemara of Amos, what do you mean? Ema darashuni b'chol HaTorah kulaha. Maybe when it says the word darashuni, right, it means darashuni means to learn. So maybe darashuni means that he said, look for me by learning all of the Torah. So therefore, maybe Amos was not saying do one thing. Maybe Amos was telling you to do the whole thing. So you have no proof that Amos said to do one thing. What have you learned from this question of the Gemara? That actually, none of these people got up and said to the Jewish people, guys, let me do 3. None of them said, let me do 2. None of them said, let me do 10. But when they spoke to the Jewish people, in their words we saw, Shimru Mishpat, right? Or, what does Hashem ask of you? But this. So you see, in their language, they were asking for 3, or for 2, or for 1. So when it came to Amos, the Gemara thought Amos was giving us 1. Says the Gemara, no, that can't be. You have no proof that it's 1. Maybe it's actually more. Maybe it's all of them. Ella, rather, who is the one person? The person who limited, Moshe emes, Moshe em, v'torah to'emet, Moshe emet, Moshe, v'torah to'emet. Okay.
We need one more chair.
I think that's it.
Oh, good.
And a glass of wine also for the Sadiq. And the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Ella, ba Chabakuk. What was who did 1? Ba Chabakuk ve'midan alachat. The Navi Chabakuk came along. And he said it on 1. Shneimar, v'sadiq, ve'emunato, yichyeh. A Sadiq lives with his emunah. Now, I just want you to understand. Effectively, what this means is, what Chabakuk is telling you is, that if you had true emunah in Hashem, you could come to all the Torah's mitzvot. So someone says, I'm struggling in this mitzvah, you can work on that mitzvah, or you can work on your emunah. You can work on your anger, or you can work on your emunah. You can work on your jealousy, or you can work on your emunah. Chabakuk is telling us that at the source of every mitzvah is emunah. Because if you had true emunah to that point, then the mitzvah would become easy. Okay? Now, let me just share one beautiful idea that they bring on this. Who is this Chabakuk that says, hey, midan alachat? He said there's one thing you need. Tzaddik be'emurato yichyeh. Who is he?
He revived somebody.
Excellent. Chabakuk is the child of the Isha HaShunamit. The Shunamit woman, she's promised a child by Elisha. Elisha says she's going to have a child. She has a child. The child then dies. The child dies. What does she do with her child that passed away? She puts him in the room that she set up for Elisha. She puts him in the room on his bed. She closes the door. She starts leaving the house. Her husband says, where you going? She says, I'm going to visit the prophet, Elisha. He says, why? It's not Shabbat. It's not Rosh Chodesh. How come you're going to the prophet today? She says, Shalom. I'll see ya. Yeah, exactly. Peace out, right? Cash me outside. That's it, I'm out, I'm going. Right? Chalas. She goes. Elisha comes back, and he lies down on the child, hands on his hands, mouth on his mouth, and he does spiritual CPR, does Techiyat HaMetim. Why? Because he owes this woman everything for her act of chesed.
Oh, what did she do? What happened with her and him?
Oh, so here's the best part. If you read that haftarah, my favorite thing ever. If you read the haftarah, you'll see that in this haftarah, there's 2 places where they end. Sephardim end, she says, Shalom, peace out, I'm going to see the rabbi. End. Kan misayim Sephardim. Then the Ashkenazim carry on. She goes and gets him. Techiyat HaMetim. The guy comes back. He comes back to life. That's where they end. Rav Aryeh Levine's wife, she went to shul. She says, I don't understand. The Sephardim skipped the best part. He said, I'm going to see the rabbi, and then that's the Sephardim end here. Don't they want it to end when the kid gets up? The rabbi said, that's the difference.
Big time.
The second she went to see the rabbi, Sephardim was like, oh, Baruch Hashem. Hazaku Baruch. L'chaim. We went to see the rabbi.
This one is the second one, is Atova Metiv.
Which is the second one? This one?
Yes.
Okay.
This one first?
Baruch, you don't have to.
You could go back.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hatov b'hametim. Fantastic. All to celebrate the Torah. Okay. So, now we go back to the Pasuk. Tzadik be'emunato yichyeh. She knew that the prophet's going to come and do Techiyat HaMetim. So Habakkuk learned in his own life, literally his life came from emunah.
That's crazy.
V'sadik be'emunato yichyeh. He lives with his emunah. However, of course, it doesn't only mean in this world, it also means in the following world as well. So Sadik be'emunato yichyeh. Says the Gemara, let's continue. Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Hanina. Rabbi Yossi bar Hanina comes along and says, Arba gezerot gazah Moshe Rabbeinu al Yisrael. There were 4 things that seemed to come across as decrees from Moshe in the Pasuk. Ba'u arba nevi'im, 4 prophets came along after Moshe Rabbeinu, u'betilum, and they undid them. Now let's be razor sharp, absolutely clear. A Navi cannot undo what Moshe said. The whole of Torah is based on the fact that Moshe is the Avi HaNevi'im. It's from God, so no Navi can come along and say he's a Navi, I'm a Navi. We're equal. Moshe Emet, Torah we're just saying it.
No, but the same thing goes for every Navi and every rabbi before them, no?
True. Moshe was biggest that ever was, ever will be. Okay? He's the biggest Navi ever was, ever will be. Lokam Moshe od Navi Yisrael. There was never a Navi like Moshe in Yisrael, ever. Okay? I just pointed this out. I just wanted to share with you a fascinating idea. We know in the beginning of Vayikra, it's my Bar Mitzvah Parasha, Vayikra el Moshe. What does it say, Vayikra? Vav, Yud, Kuf, Resh, Aleph. The Aleph is small. Why is the Aleph small? Rashi tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu felt embarrassed. Because Vayikra is a Lashon, is an expression of warmth, of Chiba, Lashon Chiba. Moshe says, I'm going to write in the Torah, Vayikra, that you called me with such an expression of warmth, I'd rather not write it. God says, you got to write it. That's the word in the Torah. No discussions. You're writing it. What does Moshe say? Okay, no problem. Let me write it in a way, I'm going to write it in the Torah. It's going to have all letters. But I'm going to write the letter Aleph small. That way, if you're not looking, what does it look like? Vayiker. What does it say Vayiker? By Bil'am. Vayiker means the opposite of Vayikra. Vayikra, as he called him with warmth. Vayiker means, and he happened upon him. Right? He happened upon, like it happened to be Moshe. Could have been anybody, but it was Moshe.
The burning bush.
Sorry?
The burning bush.
What about the burning bush?
Burning bush.
What about the burning bush?
Vayikar.
You mean that the burning bush was Vayikar?
Yes.
Why was it by Vayikar over there?
That it seemed to be by random, but it actually was intentional by Hashem.
So that's what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying. I'm going to make it look like it's random so that I can maintain the humility. Okay? Now listen carefully. Let me point something out. Rambam says that one of the 13 attributes of faith, ikarim of emunah. One of them is that Moshe Rabbeinu is the greatest Navi that ever lived and that ever would live. If you don't believe in one of those 13, what are you? Apikores. You're a heretic. Is Moshe a Jew? If Moshe believed about himself that there was anyone that was bigger than him, what would that have made Moshe Rabbeinu? An Apikores. Right? It's fundamental. Then he's not exempt from it because it's him. So Moshe knows that he's the greatest. He's just very uncomfortable with saying it. But if Moshe is the greatest, by anyone's standards, how does the Gemara come along and say that there's people that come and they mevatel the gezerot of Moshe Rabbeinu? If a Navi comes along, biggest rabbi you ever met in your life, knows all the Torah backwards and forwards, never did a sin in his life, and he says, Moshe Rabbeinu said that this is the mitzvah, I'm going to change the mitzvah. What do they do to that guy? They kill him. Saken Mamre. Okay? So what's going on here? The answer is, this is not what it means. It doesn't mean that Moshe Rabbeinu put in the Torah Gezerah and they undid it. It means that Moshe Rabbeinu said, as a Gezerah, something was going to happen. And the Nevi'im came along and said, no, it's not going to happen. But how could they say that? We'll see in just a minute. What are the four things that Moshe Rabbeinu said? Amar Rabbi Yosef ben Chanina said, Arba Gezerot kazar Moshe Rabbeinu al Yisrael. Ba'u arba Nevi'im b'telum. Moshe said, Vayishkol Yisrael betach badad en Yaakov. Vayishkol Yisrael betach. Yisrael will live with security. Badad en Yaakov. But when will they live alone? En Yaakov, when they're living like Yaakov. Yaakov is the name that Yaakov was given when he's stepped on by Esav. Yisrael is the name that Yaakov is given when he defeats the Malach of Esav. So when Yisrael is in its strength, they'll live with peace and prosperity. Betach, they'll be safe and secure. But when they're living like Yaakov, when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, then they'll be alone. They'll be Badad Yeshiv, they're going to live by themselves. Amos came along and he undid this decree. How did he do it? Because it says, Chadalna, mi yakum Yaakov. Please, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How is Yaakov going to stand up? You have to be with them. So you see, he's talking about the Jewish people, and he's using the name Yaakov, and still he said to God that he has to be with them, that they should not be left alone. Uchtiv, and the pasuk says afterwards, Nicham Hashem Azot, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was, he had mercy, and he relented with regards to this. So he undid what Moshe Rabbeinu said was going to happen. Okay. The Gemara continues. Moshe said, when they're amongst the non-Jews, so once they get exiled, they should not have targia, they should not have tranquility, they should not have peace. They should never. The galut should always be terrible for them when they're gonna be there for their sins. Yirmiyah comes along and he says, "V'amar haloch largio Yisrael." Hashem, please go to the Jewish people and calm them. Be with them in their galut. Be alongside them so that they could be calm in your presence. The third one was Moshe Amar. Hashem, when a father does a sin and the children continue that same sin, so they're carrying on the tradition, the children also get punished for the sins of their fathers. Yechezkel comes along and says, no, if you did a sin, you die for your sin. I don't have to die. I don't have to get punished any extra because my father also did the same sin and I'm following in his same ways. That's the third one that was undone. The fourth, Moshe said, you're going to be lost. You're going to perish amongst the goyim. Shaya said, on that day, the shofar, the great shofar will blow. And Hashem, you're going to bring them all back from Galut. Okay? So you see clearly, every one of the goyim, every one of the gezerot is undone by the Nevi'im. So how is it undone? The answer is that Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking about God in his judgment. What were the Nevi'im pleading with? Hashem in his mercy. They said to God, listen, if you treat the Jews this way with din, they're never going to survive. Please look at them in mercy. That's one way of understanding what the Gemara means. The second way of understanding it is very different. No, it's not that they were saying, look in mercy. It's not what they were saying. What the Jewish people, what the Nevi'im was saying is, Moshe Rabbeinu, you looked at your generation, and they were a generation, why didn't Moshe ask for mercy? The answer is, in Moshe's generation, they were better off with din than with mercy. We always want the maximum amount of din that we can handle. Because when we get mercy, it's not ideal for us. Let me give you an example. When you go into Galut, do we want God to be with us? Do we want to have big houses in Galut and exile? Do we want to be comfortable? Then you don't return. You never get better. Moshe Rabbeinu said, no. These people are capable. They're strong. They're stiff-necked. God, please, when they go into Galut, don't have Rahmanut and thereby lengthen their Galut. So Moshe is talking to the people of his generation and his ilk. Specific. Now, what's interesting is the first time we find who's the first Navi that undoes, if you will, the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu. The first one is Ba'amos u'bitela. Okay, the Gemara says it's out of order because Amos is not the first of the Nevi'im, but the first Navi is many generations after Moshe. So Moshe's words were referring to all the people up until that point. And they could handle that. And therefore Moshe said, no, let them suffer in Galut. When you bring them a Haman, what will happen? They'll go back to Israel. So that was the example that we're learning about. So in the end, One way of understanding it is that they were talking to Midat HaRahamim. The other way of understanding it is, as the Jewish people's level fell, as their strength and resilience fell, the Nevi'im had to ask for something a little bit different at a later point in their time. Let's continue. We're almost at the end. I can feel it coming. Mistafin Rav said, Mistafin Ma'ikra, I'm scared of the pasuk. It says, V'avadetem ba'goyim, that they're going to be lost amongst the nations. The Gemara says, Mat kifla Rav Papa. Rav Papa said, what are you afraid of? Dilma ke'aveda mitbakeshet. Maybe it says, V'avadetem ba'goyim, you're going to be lost amongst the goyim. God says, you're like a lost object that I'm looking for. You're not cut off. You're not a piece of garbage. You're something I lost. Whenever you lose something, you keep looking for that item. Maybe that's what it means, that God's going to keep looking. Dichtiv, ta'iti kiseh oved, bakesh avadecha. I have gone like a sheep, but Hashem, seek me out, look for me. So therefore the Gemara says, no, what was Rav afraid of? Ela mesefa dekra. From the end of that same pasuk. What does it say at the end of that pasuk? Va'achala etchem eretz oivechem. The land of your enemy will consume you, there'll be nothing left. Matkifla marzutra. Marzutra is, you scared of that? Dilma ke'achilat kishuin v'diluin. Maybe it's like the type of eating that applies to cucumbers and gourds. What does that mean? The type of consuming of cucumbers and gourds? Different opinions. One opinion is that there's some left on the vine, so that there'll be some that survive. The second opinion is no, that when you eat it and the things are left to rot in the ground, whatever you throw out actually still has seeds in it, so it replants and keeps growing. What are these rabbis asking Rav? Rav says, I'm scared. It says we're going to die. They're like, oh, maybe we're going to die like this kind of death. Right? What are they saying? The answer is they were asking Rav, by being afraid of the pasuk, you're translating the pasuk that way. If you translate the pasuk that way, then that's what it is. Rav, you're such a holy caliber. You should translate it for the good. Find an easier way of looking at the pasuk.
The seeds remain and you continue to...
If the seeds remain, you continue to grow. So it's, of course, we're going to be eaten up. It's going to be difficult. But that they'll be carrying on later on as well. Maybe they were on their way to dinner in Bnei Brak. Okay. Vishamu, no one got that? No? Okay, fine. Vishamu kol hamunah. Sharomi. You were looking at... They heard the tremendous sounds of the Romans as they were miflata, as they were in the plaza of Rome. They heard the cheers of the crowd in Rome. Or another opinion is they heard the steps of the legionnaires, and they could hear it 120 mil away. What a tremendous distance away. They were able to hear Rome so loud, so present. They started to cry. Rabbi Akiva started laughing. Why are you laughing, sir? I'm not sure if there's air conditioning in here. Is there any AC?
He's going to get a remote for the school.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Thank you.
I'm dripping.
Yeah.
The rabbis are crying. Rabbi Akiva is laughing, and Shlomo Fai is sweating. Rabbi Akiva Mizachek. Amrulo, they said to him, Ahlan u'sahlan. They did not say that. Amrulo, they said, Amar mipnei ma ata mizachek. Why are you laughing? Amar lahem, he said, V'atem mipnei ma atem bochim. Why are you crying? Amrulo, they said, Halalu kushim shemishtachrim la'atzavim. These idol worshippers, u'mekatrin, who sacrifice la'avodat kochavim, yoshvim betach. They're happy. They're in their coliseum. They're playing games. Are you not entertained? Ve'ashket, and relaxing. Ve'anu, but us, Bet Adom Ragle Elohenu, the footstool of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, Saruf is burnt up. Ba'esh in a fire. Ve'lo nibkeh, we shouldn't cry when we hear the success of Rome and the downtrodden element of where we are as Jews. Rabbi Akiva said, Amar lahem, lekach ani mitzachek. That exactly is the reason why I'm laughing.
Wait, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Sorry. I know you're on a roll. Let me ask you a question. How did you get from...
You know what?
Let's slow it down.
Do you know what the kids say? Slow your roll.
No. I'm sorry, I know the burgers are waiting for us, everything. But how did you get from Moshe to the Romans coming? When did we switch over, and who was Moshe talking to?
No, okay, we finished.
The Romans, and then
So in
the Romans
It's a big
were
24
they in Rome when they heard the Romans coming? Were they in
24
Rome?
Shuf, 24a6.
Yeah.
We discussed how there was prophecies about the Jewish people being destroyed, and then the other
Moshe had
rabbis
prophecies.
saved that.
Wait, I'm sorry.
They brought it back.
Moshe
Moshe had the Gezerah. The other Nevi'im came along and said, no, they're not going to be lost.
During Moshe's time?
No, much later.
Much later.
But they undid the Gezerah of Moshe. that the Jewish people would be alone, that God wouldn't be with them, that they wouldn't be redeemed, that they would all die in the land of Galut, right? So the Nevi'im came and undid that. Then we had a further example of that, of Rav seeing it in a negative way, and the two students, Rav Papa and Marzutra, coming along and saying, no, they're going to be eaten, but only like you eat cucumbers. They're going to be lost, but lost in a way where you still look for the lost object. So we turned it in a better way. On the subject of something which is harsh, that gets turned in a better way, says the Gemara, let me tell you a story.
After the time of Rome?
After the time of Rome. No, by the time of the Beit HaMikdash destruction. These last story, all these rabbis, they sandwich the time of the Beit HaMikdash and the time after it.
What relevance does this have, talking about...
So we're middle of the line. So you didn't get it to the end yet, because we slowed the roll. But they're describing a fact that Rome, the Galut, is so strong, and the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed, and we're crying about the Beit HaMikdash, and look at how well they're doing. So it's to the point of how difficult it will be in Galut. Okay? So they're crying, he's laughing. They ask him, why are you laughing? He says, why are you crying? They said, we're crying because the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed. Why are you laughing? He says, I'm laughing for the same reason. If the ones that didn't listen to God are rewarded with such wealth and such power, i.e., what we're hearing from so far away of the Romans, to those that do God's will, how much more so and how much more so. The Gemara tells us that in the time of Mashiach, the stadiums that the non-Jews have set up for all of their sporting events will be taken over and they'll be used for mitzvot, ma'asim Torah and ma'asim tovim and Torah.
Wow.
Listen to this. Isma.
I love that.
Hold on, Isma. You know where we're going. Isma. I heard the best question. The question is, what, we can't build our own stadiums? We can't get the Edmund J. Safra Stadium for Torah? The answer is, no. We're taking a place with all that cheering and all that energy, not learning like this, but the way people go nuts. Oh, guy's going to give a terutz to the question of the Gemara. Everyone's going to be like, hey. We're going to use the joy and the energy and the electricity that you have over there for every part of Torah. And my friends, we were the first generation that I know of to have been zochet to see it. Because I was in Siyum Hashas, in MetLife Stadium, and I spoke on I was on the big screen over there, right, in the same place. And not only did they fill up every seat in the stands, they covered the whole floor with seats too. So more than any football game, more than any basketball game, more than any concert. What was that stadium filled with? With people celebrating Talmud Torah. So this is exactly this Gemara. Ready for this? They said, we hear them with all of their celebrations. The Beit HaMikdash is destroyed. Rabbi Akiva said, if the people who don't do his will get that, don't you think we're going to get more? When the time comes, my friends, we're the generation who could hear Rabbi Akiva's laughter. We're seeing it at the doorstep. Let's continue. Another story, exactly the same concept. Shuv pa'am echat. Another time, hayu olim Yerushalayim. They were going up to Jerusalem. Kivan shigu ala Tzofim. They got to Mount Tzofim. What is famous story? Ala Tzofim. Yes, foxes. They're looking from the mountain.
There were fox pictures circulating this year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, again.
They're looking from the mountain that you could see the Beit HaMikdash from. Okay? Ala Tzofim. Karu bigdem. That's the halakha. Once you get to the overlook where you can see Harabayit from there, that's when you're supposed to tear. You don't tear when you get to the Beit HaMikdash. Now you tear your clothes in mourning.
If you haven't
didn't know that halakha.
If you haven't seen it in 30 days.
If you haven't been in 30 days, a person, when they go to the kotel, you're supposed to tear their clothing.
Wow. Not on Shabbat.
Yeah.
Not on Shabbat and
Not on Shabbat, not on Rosh Chodesh, not on a holiday, but on a regular day. The same way a person rips when they're Avel, they're supposed to rip when they see the Beit HaMikdash, they see the kotel. Hold on, two things. Number one, sometimes a person is not able to do this for whatever reason. Let's say they only have one shirt. What are they supposed to do? Halakha is that you tell whoever you're going with, you make a kinyan that the person acquires all of your clothing. You have no right to rip someone else's clothing for avelut. So that's what a person should do if they can't rip that shirt.
We buy one of those Super Jew t-shirts.
I went to my rabbi. I said, if this is a mitzvah, we should go out and buy Armani shirt, beautiful shirts, Kitan, whatever I don't know what the best one is. The best one is to do the mitzvah. Get the best one to do. You do a mitzvah. My rabbi said, no. That's What's it called? That's Bal Tashchit, not a mitzvah. It's a avera, my rabbi told me. He said, why? Because there's no hidur in an act of destruction. By the way, there's no hidur in an act of Berkowitz. Now, I can't tell you. We don't have time for it. We don't have time for that. There's no beautifying an act of destruction. Now, there's so much in this. Maybe we'll go to it into another time. They were eating. We'll come back to it. So they're looking at that place, and they're ready to tear, and they're devastated. They ripped all their clothes. Who ripped all their clothes? Everybody in the story. Who's that including? Rabbi Akiva, the outlier. Kivan Shigu Arabayit. Now they get to Arabayit. They get to the Temple Mount. They see a fox running out of the Holy of Holies. They started to cry. Rabbi Akiva is crying. They said, why are you laughing? Why are you crying? They said, the Pasuk says about the Kodesh Kodashim, that if you have a person who's not the Kohen Gadol, and he brings a Korban in that place, what's halakha? He dies for going in. So anybody but the Kohen Gadol, the Kodesh Kodashim, dies up for entry. And now, look, you have foxes running in and out. Like in that devastation, we shouldn't cry. He said, therefore I'm laughing. Because the Pasuk says, bear with me on here because it's a little bit of a journey. God says, I will take for myself edim ne'emanim as pure witnesses. Uriah the Kohen, Vet Zechariah ben Yevrachiahu, and the Navi Zechariah. These two are witnesses to me. V'chima, the Gemara says, I don't understand. V'chima inyan Uriah etzel Zechariah. What does Uriah have to do with Zechariah? Uriah b'mikdash Rishon. Uriah lived in the first temple. Zechariah b'mikdash Sheni. Zechariah lived in the second temple. They could not be witnesses. They weren't alive together. So what does the Navi mean? That God says, I'm taking these two prophets as my witness. The Torah, the Navi brought together these two prophecies, Uriah and Zechariah. Why? In Uriah it says, that because of your actions, Zion will be plowed over like a field. Destruction. In Zechariah it says, there will once again be old men and old women in the streets of Jerusalem. Children will play in its streets. A Navi of the rebuilding of Jerusalem. Says Rabbi Akiva, why is it connecting Uriah and Zechariah? Until the prophecy of Uriah happened, I feared the rebuilding wouldn't happen. Once I saw the field plowed over and a fox running out, the destruction was complete. I knew that the Torah said Uriah and Zechariah are two witnesses. They come together. If this one happened, then surely Biyadua shenevuato shel Zechariah mitkayemet. You know that the nevuah of Zechariah will also be come true. They said to him, Akiva nichamtanu. Everyone say the last two words together. Akiva nichamtanu. Rabbi Akiva, you've brought us comfort. Rabbi Akiva, you brought us comfort. Everyone together. Hadran alach Elohen Elokim uslika Allah Masechet Makot. Okay, we're going to do the Hadran. Everyone rise. Sorry. Okay, hold up one sec. Sorry if it's upside down, but now at least I'll get to see the Siyum.
We need to face east.
I don't know what's happening here. Okay, we're good. Hadran alach masech makot, ve'adrach alan. Tatar alach masech makot, ve'adrach alan. Lo nitashem minayim masech makot, lo nitashem minayim. Lo ba'al ma'aden, lo ba'al madati. Yeh ratzon fanecha, Adonai Eloheinu v'Yahudenu. Shte toratcha, emunotenu ba'olam hazeh. Okay, manu le'olam haba. Hanina bar papa, Rami bar papa, Nachman bar papa, Achai bar papa, Avamari bar papa, Rafram bar papa, Rachish bar papa, Sucha bar papa, Ada bar papa, Daru bar papa. Harevna Adonai Eloheinu דברי תורתך בפינו. פיות עמך בישראל, ונהיה כולנו אנחנו, ישראל ותצא אצלנו, צא עמך בישראל, כולנו יודעי שמך, לא יודע לשמה, ואויבי תחכמני מצוותיך, כי לעולם היא לי. היא ליבי תמיד לחוקיך, למען ולבושך. והעולם לא ישכח מלחמך, במחי איתני, ברוך אתה אדוני, בין אלוקיך, אמן, 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 סלע ועד. מודים אנחנו לפניך, אלוהי אלוהינו, אלוהי אבותינו, ששמת חלקנו ביושבי בית המדרש, ושמת חלקנו ביושבי כהנות. שאנו משכימים והם משכימים, אנו משכימים את דברי תורה, הם משכימים את דברי בטלים, אנו מאמינים והם מאמינים, אנו מאמינים, מקבלים שכר, הם מאמינים, הם לא מקבלים שכר, אנו רצים והם רצים, אנו רצים בחיי העולם הבא, הם רצים בשחת, שנאמר, ואתה אלוהים תועדם בשחת, שתמיד ומעל לא יחצוי מהם, ואני אפתח בך, יהי רצון לפניך, אדוני אלוהי, כשם שעזרתני לסיים סדר מכות, כן תעזרני להתחיל מסכתות ספרים האחרים וסיימם. ללמוד למד, ללמוד לעשות, כן ולכל דברי תלמודך לאהבה. זכות כל התנאים האמוראים, תלמידי חכמים, המונים וזרים, שלא תמוש התורה בי, זרים וזרע זרים, אדם. תקיים בי, ויתהלך לך על כאן חירותך, ושום חדתי ושמוע עליך, וכזאת יהי תשיחך, כי בי ירמו ימיך, יוסיפו לך שנות חיים, אורך ומדינה, שמאלה עוד שכבוד, תנאי עוז לעמו ייתן, וברך את עמו והשלום. One more time. הדרן הלך מסך במכות, והדרך עלן, תעתן הלך מסך במכות, תעתן עלן. לא נתנשם עינך מסך במכות, לא תתנשם עינן. לא בעמדן, לא בעמדתה. הדרן הלך מסך במכות, הדרך עלן. תעתן עלן מסך במכות, תעתן עלן. לא נתנשם עינן מסך במכות, לא תתנשם עינן. לא בעמדן, לא בעמדתה. I'm going to say the Kaddish. If someone else would like to say it with me, you're more than welcome to. Yeah. Second, is everyone finished? Okay. There's a special edition in the middle over there. Okay.
This one?
Yeah. Hold on 1 second.
You said it twice or 3 times just now?
I said it 2 more times because we did it the first time.
Okay.
Okay.
You do it like that always? Not
No, sometimes I do it a different way. Yeah. Sometimes people do the whole of it 3 times. Too much. Okay,
The
ready?
abridged version.
יתגדל, יתקדש שמי רבה, העמדי הוא עתיד להתחדתה, ולהחיה מטיה, ולהסקה יתרון לחיי עלמא, למבנה קרטט ירושלים, ושכלה יכלה בגבה, ומהקר פולחנה נכלאה מנערה, ולהטבה פרחנה תשמע לאתרה, וימליך קודשה בריחו באחותה, יקרב, ויצמח וקרב, וקרב ושכם. נכון, נכון, חייתכו בישראל, בהגלה בזמן קריב ומאמן. יהי שמי רבם מברך לעולם ולמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם, יעשה ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, ולקודשה בריחו, ואלה מכל ברכתה שיעתה, שפעתה ונעמתה, אמנם העם אמרו אמן. על ישראל, על רבנן, על תלמידון, ועל כל תלמידי תלמידון, על כל מאן דעסקי באורייתא, היא באתר אדם, היא בכל אתר ואתר. אלוהון, נכון ושלמה רבה, עינה מזר החמה, אין ערוכין, מסחר וכן, וקנה מקדם ומול נשמעה, ורב אמרו אמן. יש עולם שמיה, האם זה לא ישראל נעמה, זה דבר פורק לא עושה מהבראה, ואם עשו כמו ישראל אמרו אמן. עושה שלום לברומה, ורעש שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, בגרורנו. אמן. יעשה שלום, אמן. יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. Why? Yes. Oh no, it's not my own present. Wait 1 minute. Hold on. Last one. 1 second. Before we finish, let's go back to the first page after we just finished the last page. Masechet Makot, Chav Zayin Shvat, Tafshin Pei Dalet. So we did this in well under a year, right?
11 months, I think.
Yeah, well under. And also we had the summer in it, which is far less. So this Masechet was dedicated for the Refuah Shlema of Chana bat Tzimafega, Chaim Rafael ben Frida, Shoshana bat Leah, Moshe ben Shoshana, Eliyahu ben Ivan Chava, and any of Am Yisrael who need as well. So my friends, Bezrat Hashem, we should be zochet to see refuah shema for all of them. Yishi berach Odenam Tzvi Yaakov Hashem Avon Shlomo. Veti Odenam Kishot Vatorot. Sarai Rivka Rachel Leah. Hu yivarech v'yirapeh et kol cholei Amo Yisrael. בזכות הסיום שעשינו, ובזכות בעזרת השם התורה, שעוד נתחיל מסכת מועד קטן, בשעה טובה ומוצלחת. שלח רפואה שלמה, לחנה בת צמפגה, לחיים רפאל בן פרידה, לשושנה בת לאה, למשה בן שושנה, לאליהו בן אימן חווה, ולכל עמו ישראל, אל נא רפאנה להם, אל נא רפאנה להם, אל נא רפאנה להם, ואחריהם ואבריהם ואחזיקיהם, מחזיריהם את הלב הראשון, כן יהי רצון, ונאמר אמן. מזל טוב. Sorry? The sponsor was for this. But who sponsored this one? Stanley sponsored this one. Hazak Baruch. Bezrat Hashem should be tremendous beracha for you and your whole family, inshallah. Okay. Why?